What do you do when the person you trust most in the world is the one twisting the knife in your back? For me, the first hint of betrayal wasn't a lipstick stain or a suspicious text message. It was a notification from a hotel chain, an email glowing on my phone screen at 2 a.m. in our silent Chicago apartment. Thank you for your stay, Michael. We've added 500 loyalty points to your account. The problem was, I hadn't stayed in a hotel in months. My heart hammered against my ribs as I saw the location. The peninsula, right here in the city, a place we'd only dreamed of affording. The points were from rooms I never booked, a life I wasn't living. I knew with a certainty that chilled me to the bone that my wife, Sarah, was living it without me. If you genuinely enjoy our stories, please subscribe to the channel. Tell us where you're from, and what time it is right now. It's always fascinating to know how far our story flows. The email was the first loose thread. It started pulling. Sarah had been distant for months, a shift I'd blamed on her stressful new marketing job. The late nights, the client dinners that stretched past midnight, the way she'd angle her phone away from me. Her fingers quickly tapping out messages I was never meant to see. I'd ignored the signs, wanting to be the supportive husband, the partner she could count on. Now, that support felt like an incredible, breathtaking stupidity. With hands that shook so badly I could barely type the password, I logged into our shared credit card account. And there it was, a charge from the Peninsula's bar. Time-stamped from a night she was supposedly at a work conference in a completely different part of town. The humiliation was a physical thing, a hot, creeping flush crawling up my neck, making my collar feel tight. She wasn't just cheating. She was using my money, our money, to do it, building a separate life on the very foundation of our marriage. Her behavior became a masterclass in manipulation. When I gently asked about her day, her answers were clipped, annoyed. God, Michael, do you have to interrogate me? It was just work. She'd create arguments out of thin air, spinning reality so that I became the villain for wanting to spend time with her, for questioning why she was suddenly so cold and distant. She and her lover, who I soon discovered was her smarmy, arrogant boss, Mark, acted untouchable. They were brazen. I once saw them leaving a restaurant on Rush Street, laughing together, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. She saw me. Our eyes met across the crowded street. Her eyes widened for a split second, a flash of pure panic, and then a cold mask of indifference slid into place, as if she were looking at a stranger. She got into his expensive car without a backward glance, and they drove away. She came home hours later, reeking of another man's cologne, and had the audacity to tell me I was being paranoid, that I was seeing things. That night, I broke. I sat in my car in a dark, empty parking garage, the glittering city lights blurring through my tears, the weight of her betrayal crushing the air from my lungs. The love of my life saw me as an obstacle, a fool to be managed, and that's when the grief turned to ice in my veins. The breakdown was over. It was time to build. My pain became my fuel. I was no longer a husband. I was a strategist. Every tear I shed hardened into a stone of resolve. I started documenting everything. I created a separate encrypted folder on my laptop, a digital tomb for our marriage. I took screenshots of the hotel loyalty points, the credit card statements with their damning timestamps, and I quietly enabled location data on her phone, watching her movements like a hawk. Her lies became a map, and I followed it meticulously. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Frank, who looked like he'd seen every ugly thing the city had to offer. He followed them, capturing crisp, undeniable photos of them checking into hotels, kissing in public parks like careless teenagers, holding hands under the table at intimate little restaurants. The evidence was a neat, damning pile of her deceit. Next, I contacted a lawyer, the sharpest, most ruthless divorce attorney in Chicago. We didn't just plan for a divorce. We planned for her complete and utter ruin, set the traps, legally and socially. Through my pie, I found out her company was on the verge of a massive public offering. And Mark, her boss and lover, was a key figure. His, and by extension her, reputation had to be spotless for the deal to go through. They had built their affair on a foundation of lies, and I was about to set it on fire. The day of her company's big press conference was the day I chose. D-Day. It was being held in a grand ballroom at the Hilton on Michigan Avenue. I knew her parents, her colleagues, the investors, Everyone who mattered to her would be there, watching her shine. An hour before the event was set to begin, I executed the plan with cold precision. I sent a carefully curated package of evidence to the entire board of directors and the head of HR at her company. It included the private investigator's high-resolution photos, the hotel receipts, and a detailed timeline of her affair with Mark, paid for with company funds she'd disguised as fraudulent expenses. The digital bomb was dropped. Simultaneously, I had a process server walk into that ballroom, right as Sarah was schmoozing with investors, a dazzling smile plastered on her face. He walked right up to her and served her the divorce papers in a thick manila envelope. The room quieted. All eyes were on her. On top of the legal documents was a single glossy 8x10 photo of her and Mark, locked in a passionate kiss, with the date and time printed neatly below. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. I watched from a live stream on my laptop as her confident smile faltered, then completely collapsed into a mask of pure horror. Her face went white. A board member, a man I recognized from the company website, approached her, his face like thunder. Her parents, who were in the front row, looked at her with confusion, then dawning, an unbearable shame as the whispers started to ripple through the room. Mark was pulled aside by security and fired on the spot for gross misuse of company funds and inappropriate conduct. Sarah was publicly suspended, her career and her carefully crafted reputation incinerated in a matter of minutes in front of everyone she had ever tried to impress. She tried to call me dozens of times, her texts shifting from furious, venomous threats to pathetic, desperate begging. I didn't answer. I just watched her name flash on my screen and felt nothing. The legal battle was brutally short. With the mountain of evidence I had, she got nothing. No alimony, no half of the assets, nothing. Her parents, disgusted by the public humiliation and her deep deceit, turned their backs on her completely. She was left utterly alone, with nothing but the consequences of her own actions. I sold the apartment we once shared, the place filled with ghosts of a life that was never real. Sometimes I walk by the peninsula, the grand, imposing building where she conducted her secret life. There's no anger anymore, no thrill of victory, no satisfaction, just a quiet, hollow emptiness where a heart used to be. The loyalty points are gone, of course, but the memory of what they cost remains.